Hey guys, what's going on? Broken Daydream here, back here with another video. So over on my TikTok, I've been doing something called the Gyaru tier list, where I've been on the hunt to find the best Gyal characters and manga. I just did episode 25, which I consider to be the season finale of the Gyaru tier list. So you guys have been asking me, and I also thought it would be a good idea to make a YouTube video where I'm covering all the Gyal characters and all the Gyal manga that have appeared on the Gyal tier list so far. But before we do that, what is a Gyal? What is a Gyaru for those that don't know? Long story short, just think Cali girl, but Japanese. But to give a little more detail, it's kind of a fashion and lifestyle in Japan. When it comes to appearance, they can have dyed hair, long nails, heavy makeup, tan skin, so on and so forth. When it comes to their personality, they're pretty fun-loving and carefree, positive attitude, easygoing, confident, flirty, and don't really care what the other people think. So why did I decide to make a tier list ranking these Gyal characters and manga? I don't know, I just thought it'd be fun. So something that I never really explained is how the list is actually structured. So there are two different ways that I'm ranking things. The first way is if a Gyal is the main character of their series, then I base the ranking on the series itself, my full enjoyment of the series, and not just based on the main character, just based off the one Gyal. For example, Miku is the star of her series, but I don't base the ranking just based off how much I like her as a Gyal. I base it off of how much I enjoy her series as a whole. The second way I do this is if a Gyal is just a side character in the series and not the main character, then I base my judgment just based off that character by themselves and not the series as a whole. For example, there's a Gyal in Psyche K, I believe her name is Mikoto, but she's not even a main side character, she's a side character. So I'm just gonna base the ranking of her just based off her as an individual, how much I like her as an individual, and not the series as a whole. Hopefully that made sense. One more thing before we get into the list proper. I normally don't ask this at the beginning of the video, but if you haven't, please like the video because I know this is going to take me a long time to edit. So without further ado, let's go ahead and tackle this list. So I decided that we're going to start from the bottom and make our way up. So we're starting in the trash. And of course I will be having the pictures and name of series over here. First up is Black Gyal Shimata Sensei. Our main character is assigned to an all-girls school to teach, but he doesn't really see that as a problem. He's just really excited about teaching. Well, he's excited until he finds out that the school is filled with Gyals. He was bullied by Gyals back in high school, so he has a bit of trauma. And the thing is, all these girls want to do is smash. Want to have intercourse with you. Yeah. The reason why it's in the trash is because it's just a bit too raunchy for me. Like, I like my ecchis, I like my comedy, but this one is just a bit too much for me. But with that said, I might revisit the series for season 2. When I started the series, I went in completely blind and was kind of turned off by it. But now that I know what it's about, maybe I can just take a deep breath, give the series another try, and see how I feel about it. So there is a possibility of it moving out of the trash. Next up is Call of the Gyaru, and there is absolutely no way that this one is getting out of the trash. Let me say a few good things first before I really get into why I don't like this series. First off, I think she's the only Gyal on the list so far that's something other than human. Like, all the other characters are human characters. She's some kind of monster thing. The other thing that I really like about this series is that she's hot. I mean, just look at her. But being hot doesn't save you from being in the trash. Basically, the setup is that she wants the white stuff from this kid. So she kinda sorta just R-words him. I don't know about you all, but I don't really find that very funny or entertaining to read. So it's in the trash. Next up is Secret Gyaru X Shota Couple. This manga just gives off I'm going to jail vibes. I'm going to jail! Surprise, surprise, the title basically explains the concept of this manga. It's about a Shota and a Gyal who have a secret relationship. So I went into the series completely blind, so I thought the Shota was just a short guy, but in reality he's actually just an elementary school kid. And I'm not exactly sure how old the Gyal is, but I'm pretty sure she's in high school. And they do some weird, wild, uncomfortable stuff when it comes to that age gap. So yeah, this is going and staying in the trash. Last of the trash is Gyal cleaning. Overall, this series is actually pretty alright. It actually has a pretty unique premise. Our main character really isn't a big fan of Gyals, but let's just say this and that happens, and he ends up living with his classmate who happens to be a Gyal. But the moving in together really isn't the unique part because that happens in rom-coms all the time. Off the top of my head, it happens in, what is it called, A Couple of Cuckoos, More Than a Married Couple, so on and so forth. The unique part is that our gal is a hoarder. She never cleans up. Her parents went overseas for business, and ever since they left, she has not cleaned up. But our main character is kind of a clean freak, so you can see how they're going to clash. Normally the series would probably land in the CClass, but why is it in the trash? Well, this is where chapter 8 comes in. The story goes that the author found out that his manga was getting axed, so he decided to ruin it for everybody. So in chapter 8, he just kind of throws in this girl about to get, molested. And it's just completely out of nowhere. I mean, for the most part, the manga has just been a romantic comedy, and then out of nowhere, molestation. And that's why it's in the trash. Man, it was awful dealing with all that garbage, but now we get to move to the D class. First up is Kuro Gal. Our main character has kind of fallen into a routine: eat, sleep, and work. One day while trying to get himself some dinner, this gal kind of appears out of nowhere. Is like, hey, I'll bring some joy back into your life. He's just like, what is with this high schooler and why is she out so late? So the manga is kind of about our main character running into this gal at random locations and then shenanigans happen. For example, he randomly runs into her on the train and then shenanigans happen. It's not bad, but I found it to be kind of boring. Next up is the gal will date the otaku in 100 days. This manga is unique in a few different ways. Most of the time there's only one page per chapter, but each page represents one day in that world. The other unique thing is that the manga actually takes place in first person, kind of like if you were playing a dating sim game. The other thing is that it's in color and it looks great, but that's where the good stuff stops. My issue with the series is the main gal's attitude towards the main character. She just kind of treats him like garbage for no reason. It would be different if he was annoying or constantly pursuing her to warrant that kind of attitude, but he's not. He could be just chilling and she'd be like, ugh, gross. And it's not in like a tsundere type of way. She's like truly disgusted with him for like no reason. And that's probably why the series got axed, because no one was feeling this gal main character. But the interesting thing is, after it got axed, it got rebooted into a different series, which we're going to be touching on later on in this video. But moving on to the next series, The Call of the Dagashi Store. It's about a gal who moves out to the country for the summer. And let's just say that she's not very fond of nature. Luckily, she has the local kids to kind of keep her company and show her the ropes. It only has 2 chapters and it's not very entertaining, so that's how it ended up in the D class. This next one has a pretty long title. It's called A Gal and an Otaku Who Have Entered a School Where They Will Have to Drop Out If They Cannot Get a Lover. The gal is about to get expelled because she doesn't have a boyfriend. At the school she goes to, communication is very important, and being in a happy, healthy relationship normally means you guys have good communication skills. So the school gives you 3 months from the beginning of the school year to get yourself a significant other. The gal's time is almost up, and the same can be said for the otaku character. This and that happens, and she ends up manipulating him to signing a contract to be her boyfriend. But it's not enough for them just to sign the contract. They have to prove to the school monitors that they actually like each other and didn't just sign the contract to get out of being expelled. So the manga does have a pretty fun setup, but I really didn't care for the characters, and it is only a one-shot, meaning that it's only 1 chapter. Next up is Gaokudo. I decided to do something a little different here and tackle a shoujo series. Our gal is from a family that is known for their flower arrangements, but she really has no interest in flower arrangements. She just wants to be a gal and have fun. Her dad is kind of tired of trying to teach her, so he hires a tutor and she instantly falls in love with him. So now that she has a hot tutor, will she take flower arranging more seriously? The story just really isn't for me, and the art style is not doing it any favor. But you can't say that I didn't try. Next up is the C class, and I believe this one is the longest class. First up in C class is Batsu Gyaru. It's another one-shot, meaning that it's only 1 chapter. It starts off with our main character being confessed to by a gal, but he's hesitant about saying yes because of what happened in the past. See, a similar thing happened back in middle school. He was asked out by a gal, but it turned out to be a big old prank and they recorded the whole thing. She had lost some kind of bet and her punishment was to ask him out. So our main character doesn't want to have to go through that kind of embarrassment again if she's not telling the truth. So the story is kind of about our main character learning to trust again even though he was hurt in the past. So it's not bad, but it really didn't do it for me. Next up is a manga called 5 Years Later. It's another one-shot, meaning that it's only 1 chapter. It's a pretty straightforward manga. A maid is introduced to their young master for the first time, and then it skips 5 years later to see how things are going. For example, our gal is teasing the main character, but then it skips 5 years later to see that she's more of a big sister to him now. It's not bad, but there's just not a lot to go off of. Next up is My Cute Gyaru Maid. It's a short manga with only 2 chapters. Our main character's parents end up going overseas, so they end up hiring a gal maid to look after him. At first, it doesn't seem like he's gonna get along with her, but as time goes on, he starts to see her as the big sister character that he never knew that he needed. Not a lot to say because there's not a lot of chapters. Next up is the Gyaru behind the seat who touches his back. This is yet again another one-shot that doesn't really do much. The title pretty much explains the setup. Our main character is a pretty big dude, and there's a gal that sits behind him, so she uses his back to kind of communicate with him. Like, hey, do you want this sandwich? It's cute and all, but there's not really much you can do with a setup like this. Next up is Undead Lovers, and I kinda don't want to ruin the surprise for anybody if you haven't read it yet. It's kinda hard to talk about this manga without giving the surprise away. All I can really say is that the main girl is a gal just for the first chapter. What do I mean by that? Well, I suggest giving this manga a read to find out. Next up is Gal Komi. I kinda just found a fan art picture of her and I wanted to share it. Next up is Mikoto from Psyche K. Now I believe this is the very first time where the gal isn't the main character of their series. So we're going to be basing her placement on the tier list based off how much I like the character themselves rather than on the series as a whole. Honestly, I don't really have much to say about her. She has a couple of funny moments, but nothing really memorable. Next up is Gao Sin, and this series actually has a high chance of changing classes. Not going up a class, but actually going down a class. She's definitely one of the most attractive gals on the list, but that doesn't save this manga. So what's the setup? Well, when our main character was younger, he had a neighbor that he kind of saw as a big sister. He doesn't really know how to express his feelings, so he ends up telling her that he hates her. After that day, he never saw her again. Well, not until high school. Turns out she's going to be his PE teacher. And yeah, she remembers who he is. So this is when gal and student shenanigans ensue. But things start to get weird pretty quick. It starts off pretty tame with some normal gal teasing that you would expect out of a series like this. But then it kind of starts getting weird and uncomfortable. Like, I'm getting Secret Gyaru X Shota couple vibes from this manga. As the story goes on, she starts to become more manipulative. For example, the ice cream scene, the pool scene, like what is going on? The manga should be lower on the gal tier list, but I'd be lying to you guys if I said I wasn't intrigued or interested to see how things are gonna play out. Like, what's her motivation? What's her game plan? What's the end game? But sadly, the series hasn't been updated since January, so I'm kinda just stuck wondering what's gonna happen next. Fun fact, the author behind Galsin is also one that made the manga My First Girlfriend is a Gal. And if you didn't know, the manga is actually still ongoing, but it also hasn't been updated since January. Alright, on to the next series. I picked up A Goblin. The series is pretty straightforward. It's about a gal who ends up finding a goblin, and she brings it back home with her to be a pet. A goblin in a house full of women? What could possibly go wrong? But for real, the series is actually pretty chill and laid back. Next up is Shiro Gyaru and Koru Gyaru. This one's a bit different. It kind of has a love triangle going on. The Shiro gal likes the otaku, the Kuro gal likes the Shiro gal, and the otaku is just happy with all the attention that he's getting. I feel like I would really like this series, but sadly it's only 2 chapters long. So I think we've gone over like 19 different gal related things so far. I think it's time that we take a break. Yeah, we got like 20 more gal related things to talk about, so I think this is a good, stopping point. But don't worry, you won't have to wait long for part 2. I wouldn't be surprised by the time you guys see this video that part 2 is already done and edited. But I'm probably going to wait a few days in between uploads. So in the next video, I'm going to be covering from B class all the way up to SSS plus class. So if you guys like this video, like the video, and if you like me, subscribe to me. And as always, this has been Broken Daydream, and I'll catch y'all next time.